Hey kids, it's Jurassic James. Jurassic James Explains. We're looking at Guemesia. Now, I must confess that I did not know this dinosaur existed until this toy came out. You're like, what do you mean? Don't you know all the dinosaurs? No, there's always new ones being discovered. This was actually named in 2022, so within 3 years we have a toy of it. And I must say, it is one of the most brainiest of the Abelisaurs. Not that it's smarter, they only found a brain case. Now, because of this, being so new, me not knowing it, I will do something for the first time in Jurassic James history. I have notes. You're like, notes? And I remember my wife was like, shouldn't you just memorize information and tell it? I was like, no, I don't want to project like most people on the internet that, oh, I just know everything. We're all learning. And for me, I was like, Guemesia. Now, I saw it was a Abelisaur. I was like, of course. And I realized it was only a brain case. I was like, that's what's going on. Anyway, so, real quick notes for the stories. Guemesia. So, named after Martin Miguel de Guemes. And he died in 1821. This is the 200-year anniversary when it was discovered of this guy. He was one of the fighters in the Argentine Revolution. So again, historically paleontology, being from Europe, starting in Europe, will name dinosaurs and critters after Latin and Greek features, their environment. As we go across the world, we're getting different kind of names because there's more dinosaurs. The location is northwestern Argentina. It's Los, as a Texan I should be able to say it's better, Los Blagatos Formation in the Salto province of Argentina, and the Amblio Valley. Cool. This guy was about 72 million years ago, and the big deal with this guy basically is it's a near complete brain case. Now the question is, the brain case is only about that big. I've seen, there's pictures of it and all that, but which either means it's a very, very, one of the smallest Abelisaurs ever found, or it's a juvenile. But you can't tell that from a brain case. You usually need long bones for that information. The long bones in the arms, legs, etc., or other parts of the body. And so this is a neat little figure found at a Kroger's, I believe. And so let's see. For one thing to point out is real quick. There it is. The official scissors, Jurassic James. I dropped them during my Dinosaur video. Let's. So, I missed one, but force is always in my favor. So the idea is that, one thing to point out is the head goes up and down, the mouth can open, there's little tiny little arms that go only forward and back like this, which is actually pretty accurate in my opinion. These long legs and kind of general torso. So the one thing to point out is I mentioned earlier they found only a brain case. And it's the first dinosaur found from that area. And so the question my wife asked me, and I assume you want to know too, is how do you get all of this from a brain case, right? And the answer is very simple. We don't know for sure, but in late Cretaceous, Argentina, the brain case of a herbivore, any dinosaur really, herbivore, they're different shapes and designs. And so if you don't know what a brain case is, where the brain sat in the animal's skull, there was bone around that protecting it. Now humans are weird because we have this giant melon, but the idea is that there's bones inside the skull. There's a main skull structure and there's bones around the brain itself. That's a brain case. And from that you can scan that and look at the shape of the case, therefore implying the shape of the brain itself. And so the question is, how do you get this from that? Well, it turns out in late Cretaceous Argentina, the majority of dinosaurs you're looking at who are predatory are going to be Abelisaurs, the car dinosaurs, or megaraptors. There's a few exceptions here or there, but the idea overall is that those are your three main contenders. Now this guy was found in strata that was 72 million years ago. It turns out the car dinosaurs like Mapusaurus, Giganotosaurus, all those big guys, those animals died out by that time. So the only two major carnivore types are Abelisaurs and megaraptors. That being said, there's another dinosaur. This is the first dinosaur from that site. There's another dinosaur from the site that's been debated and is very dubious and questions and all that. The pubis bone, the hip bone they found, and that is from what they think in South America is a megaraptor, and the name, I'm going to spell it for you, is, oh my, Unquillosaurus. So, Unquillosaurus. So that's a very questionable bone, but again, that would make sense that you see a Abelisaur and a megaraptor in Cretaceous, near Cretaceous. They also found what they think may be a Titanosaur, not Titanosaurus, but a Titanosaurid in the environment as well. Now, why is this so important to us? So I mentioned this 1,000 times, in the last, especially twice in the last 2 weeks, 3 weeks, is that Abelisaurs are, I mean, look at them, they're found in South America, they're found in Africa, India, Asia, and like one in Europe. They are, they are the anti-tyrannosaurs, meaning that they are where you find these guys, you don't find tyrannosaurs usually. And so the idea is that where tyrannosaurs are found in Asia, well, northern Asia, North America, and one in Europe, they kind of meet there. But these are southern hemisphere dinosaurs. You're like, wait a minute, India is not the southern hemisphere. It was attached to Madagascar. How do you know that? Geology, paleontologics. But the idea is that for a while, then it broke off and went north and ran to Asia, what we now call Asia. And so the idea here is that this Abelisaur is only a brain case, but we know it being a Abelisaur. So my wife's like, how do you know that's how it looked? And I said, it could have weird features. We don't know, but almost all Abelisaurs have boxy, truncated heads, tiny arms, long legs, and sausage-shaped bodies. So to make this model is not, I mean, I normally rail against the idea of making a toy that on a small fragment of something, but also this is a group that's well established because in the last year, Mattel has 2 years maybe. Mattel's created several Abelisaurs, and you can see. I mean, I have them all here. Well, all the ones that I think I have all of the ones that have one member of their species, not so much repaints, but they all have that general same body shape. So you're like, oh, what's going on there? And so, for example, we have early late Cretaceous Africa rugops. We have Cryptops in early Cretaceous Africa, India, Rajasaurus, Madagascar, Majungasaurus. These are all South America. So and I'm going to mention why they're in this order in a second. And so Guemesaurus, Abelisaurus, Acostosaurus, Carcarnosaurus, the guy whose name I cannot remember how to pronounce. It's spelled, I did a whole video on this guy too. Oxytiosaurus. I'm saying it wrong. I know I am. And then Scorpio Venator. And so the idea is that these guys, I see notes are important. Kids, do that in school. Take notes. So these are all, I mean, if you look at them all, I mean, they're different variations. And they are Jurassic Parkified. They're not official, scientifically, models. But you're getting, like, I can look at it from afar and be like, Abelisaur. Those are the general outline of the animal. And so what can we defer from this? Carnivore, most likely. Again, bipedal. Again, we don't know anything. I mean, when you look at other Abelisaurs, you're seeing in this animal too. So, but don't get me wrong. There's probably some unique feature it has, some unique traits it has, some unique behaviors it has. We can't derive that from a brain case. But to give you an idea on this perspective-wise, in the Abelisaur grouping, the Cryptops and the rugops, these guys are kind of the outliers, and the idea is that there's two major groupings of Abelisaurs, and they don't fall in either of them, but they are Abelisaurs, so they're kind of on the out part here. The Majungasaur group, there's Rajasaurus from India and Majungasaurus from Madagascar. It would make sense they were close related because why? India and Madagascar were touching next to Africa in Pangaea and also in Gondwana when it broke apart. And then eventually India broke from Madagascar and went north and hit Asia. So I would imagine that the features of these animals would be more similar than the other Abelisaurs because they're from the same region. In South America, it gets more complex, and again, there's the South American branch, Brachystrota, are these guys here. So basically, there's the Carnotaurus, who's the most famous, which is ironic. Carnotaurus is the most famous of the Abelisaurs, but yet it is the most weird of the Abelisaurs. In that it has the longest legs, its features are just so different than most Abelisaurs, but yet it's the most famous one because there's these giant horns. And people look at this guy and say, oh, it's like a Carnotaurus, because we're basing it on that design. And so the idea is that the Carnotaurus, these are all its closest relatives in the Carnotaurian family. And so there's another branch of the Brachystrota, having a rough morning, Brachyrosta family. There's a lot of names in my head of different things, not just dinosaurs, prehistoric clams, and brachiopods. My brain's putting all this together. And so there's all these different branches. We have enough of these things. And again, these are just the ones who got toy status. There's many of them more. There's like, I want to say 2 or 3 times more genuses than what you're seeing here that we have established or known from parts of the world. And so these animals are pretty well understood as a group. And so this was kind of funny because when I was a kid, I had no idea they existed until Carnotaurus. they've been known for decades, but pop culture says every year you get a T-Rex toy, a Triceratops, a Stegosaurus, a Velociraptor, etc. Now, Spinosaurus, And so this is a whole group that, and I hope, and this is on my own personal biases, I hope that this is like the last Abelisaur that they make, because the others aren't as popular as this one. But we'll see in 6 months. And so, Guemesia, really cool Abelisaur. I say it's a brainiest, not because it's smarter, but because it's only a brain case, and that's how paleontologists does it. They'll take just, and they compared on the paper. It's in Spanish. You have to translate it, of course. But if you don't speak, if you speak Spanish, I assume you can just read it. But if you do not speak Spanish, you can translate it, or buy it, translate it. But the idea here is that you can take a brain case, you can compare it to other things. I mean, given that it is in South America, they're not going to compare it to a Tyrannosaur brain case. They're not going to compare it to a Stegosaur brain case. They're going to compare it to, essentially, Abelisaurus, Dinosaurs, and Regoraptors. And so you narrow down from there. And so I know that's very annoying to hear, that you found a bit of bone that big and they name a whole genus on it. But a lot of fossils are fragmented. A lot of pieces are missing parts. So this is the first from that area, which is great because people were researching there. They're like, look, we found this cool thing. Attention to this thing. There's a toy of this thing. We should get more funding to go dig more and find more of this thing and other things like it. So with that being said, I'm going to close the video because it's another Abelisaur. We've been over this 1,000 times. I have other toys there that are not Abelisaurs. I'm going to get through them, I swear to you. That being said, thank you for tuning in.